Hey everyone, welcome to Dreadnought Mondays. Thanks for tuning in and hopping on. Today we are here with Adam Knight. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We're looking forward to it. Please, if you wouldn't mind, take a minute to tell people who you are and what you do and a little bit about you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kenny. It's great to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me on. Again, my name is Adam Knight. I am a longtime hotel professional. I spent 25 years in the hospitality industry working for luxury brands like Fairmont and St. Regis, and then eventually took on oversight roles over multiple hotels for a hotel company in San Francisco, and then another one up in Seattle, which is where I'm based today. At the start of the pandemic last year, so right in March last year, in a relatively high level corporate position for a hotel company, ended up getting furloughed and then eventually laid off. And so I figured, why not do the thing that I've been talking about doing for the last 10 years of my career and start a hotel management company right at the start of the worst downturn in the economy that our industry has seen in a very, very long time. So that's what I decided to do: take the bull by the horns and get this hotel management company off the ground and started. So effectively, what I do is I run hotels for owners. So if you own a hotel and you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the expertise or the desire to run your property, you would hire my company, which is called Knowing Hospitality, to run the hotel for you on a day-to-day basis. And in conjunction with that, started a hospitality-focused podcast. It's called the Proven Principles Podcast. We've been on now for just about a year, so started it right around the same time. And I wanted to use it just as an outlet to talk about what was going on in our industry and try to move the conversation forward with different experts in the industry to help people either develop skills to think about how they wanted to take their careers in the industry, again, given everything that's been going on, and just have it in a place where we could have constructive, meaningful conversations rather than just complaining about the state of affairs. We wanted to move the ball down the field, as it were. So that's what I've been spending my time doing over the last year, and it's been incredible.
That's awesome. Excuse me. You covered about 3 different points, and I want to go into more, and we'll see where it goes. One is, you mentioned that you were up in a high level position in that previous company, and so often we hear, and certainly not to knock the 9-to-5 job, there's definitely a need for that and all that stuff, and I love it and I think it's great and stuff. But you hear so much of the quote unquote get a real job or safe job or job security. Will you go a little into what your mindset was like when your safe job was no longer there, and kind of how that helped you or transitioned you or whatever? And
yeah, that's a really excellent question, because I fell into that mindset. And I want to preface what I'm about to say is that I don't fault anybody for being in a place where they want to be able to guarantee a steady paycheck, where they know what's coming in on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
I had that mentality for a long time. And, I even said, I think at the beginning, that I always wanted to start my own company, but it was never either the right time to do it. There was always a reason to fall back into the camp of getting the expected paycheck. So that's why I never really took the leap. It was only when the circumstances were forced on me where I decided that this is what I was going to do, was when it came to be. Now, I've had, almost 12 months now to reflect on what happened. And I think, I'm in an industry in hospitality where things were very, very good for a long time. After the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, it was really hard not to make any money in the hospitality industry. If you were an owner or you ran a property, travel was easy. You didn't have to go out and source people to stay in your rooms. you could find groups and find business clients and find leisure travel pretty easily. It didn't take a lot of effort. And I think the way that things shook out in the industry so quickly when this pandemic happened, it so violently affected all of these companies, big and small, from the Marriotts all the way down to the small mom and pop operators, that we realized, a lot of us who, again, thought we were in positions that we were probably going to be safe. I looked after 5 hotels for a company that has 10 properties. So, and they were across the country. And we were told that we were going to be okay, until, that one Wednesday when I got pulled into, the COO's office. That where I stand today, looking back on it, is that, nothing is ever safe. There's no, just because you get a paycheck from a company who has been paying the paycheck to you every 2 weeks for a certain period of time, doesn't mean that that job is safe. It doesn't mean that as soon as there's some sort of an economic downturn, or they lose their biggest client, or somebody comes in that has an issue with you, or you have a personality conflict with somebody, that paycheck can be pulled right out from under you. And so, over again, the course of about 12 months now, I've kind of reconciled this in my head, where I don't want to be in a position where any of those things can happen again, where a decision is made for me. My ability to pay the mortgage and put food on the table, whether or not I'm able to do those things, I want them to be because of the efforts that I put into building something, and whether I was successful in doing that or not. I didn't want it to be because of circumstances were forced on somebody else who had to make a decision about how I was going to be impacted by it. And it just took a little bit of time to get there. But, I really do believe it right now, that if you want to have the most control over your circumstances, if you have the ability to go out and leverage your talent and do something that fulfills you and make money at it, that's the direction that you should go. I'm not naive enough to think that everybody can do that, and maybe not everybody's built for that. But if you have a little bit of an entrepreneurial gene in your body, you should go out and try to make something of it. Because, just because what the pandemic did in hospitality, something like that could happen just as much in any other industry in the country. We all thought we were immune to it, and then this thing happened, and next thing you know, half of the workforce in this industry is out of work. So that's kind of where I landed.
Awesome. Thank you for expanding that. And again, certainly not to knock the 9-to-5 W-2 job or whatever, because there are a lot of great people there, a lot of great jobs and stuff. And just, and a lot of people love their jobs. They love what they do with their jobs.
Yeah.
Would you recommend, that is, if you're passionate, as a backup, if nothing else, use your passion and stuff and try and make some money as a backup sort of thing. If you still love your job and want to keep your job under normal circumstances, you can have a backup that way in case something like this happens again. You have that buffer, that cushion. You agree with something like that?
Yeah, 100%. It's like an insurance policy, right? For your job. Yeah. And sometimes it's just a good hobby. It's a good way to, maybe you're interested, you may love your job, but your passion is in doing something completely different from what you do on a day-to-day 9-to-5 basis. So it could just be a way to recharge your batteries and just get involved in something else, so that you could go back on Monday, after end of Mondays, and get after it in your W-2 world. That's 100%. That would be great. And if you could make some money at that, even better. But don't think that, regardless of the position that you hold in a company, including being the owner, that you're safe from any downturns in the economy or something else happening to the organization that would affect your job. That can happen across the board. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to do something else, I would encourage anybody to at least explore it.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then let's jump right in. What was your thought cycle and those around you, those you worked with, the impact of COVID on the hospitality and maybe even like the travel industry as well, because the hospitality, travel, all that's kind of connected in a way. With COVID's impact on that, and getting laid off and then starting your own business, what was your thought process through those three phases, if you will?
Well, the industry has been utterly decimated. I mean, anybody listening right now, just look around your town. Go outside and see how restaurants are doing. How many restaurants are there today compared to how many restaurants were there before the pandemic? And I'm willing to bet that no matter where you are in the country, you're starting to see more and more for lease signs going up on storefronts in your town. You're starting to see restaurants shutting down. You're starting to see, you have been seeing probably hotels that closed back in March that still haven't reopened, or maybe they're open, but they're barely surviving. We're nowhere near out of whatever has happened to hospitality right now. So, and I know that paints a pretty dark picture, but it's the reality. Now, making the decision to stay in hospitality, I mean, we could have that conversation all day, because I think outlined what happened, what is currently going on, and what we're going to be living with in our industry for quite some time to come. So why did I start my own business in hospitality when things are so tough out there? Is a totally reasonable question to ask. And I wanted to stay in it because I've been in this industry for 25 years. And I know that not only are there a lot of individual independent owners, hotel owners out there that are just trying to figure out how to get through this. And there's a lot of students out there that are going to hotel management school, or they're going to culinary school, or they're just coming out of high school and they're trying to figure out if this is an industry they want to go in. Or maybe you graduated a 4-year hotel management program in May of 2020. And you're like, what did I just spend the last 4 years doing? Getting a degree in this. Well, I wanted to give back in a certain sense to the industry that's provided me with so much for my entire life, where, I've been fortunate enough to work for a couple, in particular, really big multinational hotel companies, and work in different places and get exposure to different groups and different economic situations in different cities. And, this was a good outlet to be able to bring 25 years of this experience to try to give back and help people as they go through this difficult time. Because no matter how you look at it, there's still a lot of principles that the best properties in the world use that will guide your hotel out of this. And I like to think that I can bring a little bit of perspective to help some of these smaller independent owners navigate these waters that we're in.
Thank you. And it's so easy to, you could use what happened as a crutch. Well, through your experience and stuff, and in the hospitality industry, what would you tell? You mentioned a minute ago, all those for lease signs and the for rent signs, on the restaurants and hotels that have closed down, and even the college graduate thinking, now what? What would you tell them? And certainly, I'm not implying to live in denial and pretend all is bliss, but to stay out of the woe is me, this is horrible, and try and find something positive to better the situation, to make the most of it, and improvements, the college kid going, now what? What could they look for positively to move to the next step, like you took onto that podcast and opening your own company?
Yeah, no. And there's two ways I think that people can still benefit or make an impact. And the first is that there are a lot of things in this industry that need to change, that need to get better. And this is a great opportunity to rebuild the hospitality industry at large in a better way. So as you're coming into this, everybody's looking for ideas and new ways of operating and new ways of building a service culture and having inclusivity and changing the work culture in some of the organizations out there. This is the time to do that. You can have a big impact. So continue down the path and get into it and be a part of reshaping that future. The other side of it is there are a whole bunch of different industries that are looking for people who have hospitality backgrounds for a certain reason. They tend to be, generalizing here, but tend to be better with people, better connecting with people, good at understanding some complicated operational structures and how you get work done through a lot of different departments and whatnot. If you've got a little bit of a background in hospitality, if you've worked in hotels for even a couple of years or worked in restaurants for a couple of years, I promise you there's industries out there that want to bring you on because you have that expertise. And two of them in particular are the assisted living facility companies and the medical community. The hospitals and some of the offshoots in the medical field are looking for people with hotel backgrounds, again, because they bring a different mindset of service to people than is typically found within those industries. And they've been recruiting for years. And those hotel people, I've had people that worked for me that got recruited away to go work in these for organizations in those industries. So if you're looking for another path where you can still leverage your hospitality passion, those are two really good places to go after.
Thank you. And that makes me think of 2 points, with the college student. You said, keep pursuing it and you have the opportunity to make an impact. And I'm going to use an analogy here, and it might be a little extreme, but, improvements, unfortunately, often happen after like a tragedy, a disaster, or a misfortune, and take the Titanic, for example. How many more safety standards have been implemented since the Titanic went down? Mm-hmm. If your car crashes, you got all the airbags and the reinforced chassis and blah, 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 because of an unfortunate event or a downturn or something that happened that was unforeseen, so you could take the positive and make a big impact for the better, like you were saying, so thank you. And then the other thing I was thinking with, being an asset in, different industries or different channels within that industry, per se, of the hospitality. I'm a big cruise fan, and I do a lot of YouTube and research and background, and I love watching the logistics of it. And when you say hospitality, a lot of times you think of like hotel or restaurants kind of thing, but there's, like you said, the assisted living, there's the human resources, training the people, there's the food supply chain, there's the equipment supply chain, and on and on and on and on behind mm-hmm. that you don't even see. So yes, you may have come out with this area in mind of pursuing, but because you have that and that knowledge and expertise, it may be perfect fit to transition over here and add this knowledge over in this area, and vice versa, move from this part to this part kind of thing.
Yeah.
It'd be a huge impact in a positive way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, what drew me into hospitality, or I shouldn't say what drew me in, what kept me in the industry for so long is that it's huge. If you go to, your local Marriott hotel or your Westin hotel, whatever town you're in, there are so many different professions under that roof that all support one thing, which is making sure that people book your hotel and have a great experience. And yes, you've got all of the front staff, the front desk and the bellman and the restaurant staff and, whatnot. But then you start talking about the phone operators. And then there's a lot of back-end support staff, like in accounting. You've got all the food prep people and all the event staff that book and execute on events that go on. So if you're at a hotel for a big meeting, you've got the sales team and the convention services team that, they book and service some of these big groups. You're right. You've got, I already talked about accounting and accounts payable and payroll. There's HR. You've got an engineering staff that makes sure the place is maintained and it looks great. You've got housekeeping, cooks, shipping and receiving. I mean, there's security in a lot of cases. There are so many departments and ways that you can get into this industry, and then forget about all the other side. To your point, all the supply chain, all of the extra services that owners and operators need, like the legal side of things and all the HR. The HR landscape is complicated and changing all the time, especially if you live in one state versus another. There's just so much going on. That you can really pick your path. That's what kept me in it for so long.
It's so true. It's stuff you don't even think about. You walk up to a hotel and you see the green grass, but 90% of the time you're not thinking about the people that put the grass there, that maintain the grass, that put the sprinkler systems in, that do the construction on the building itself, that do the parking lot, and all these pieces tied together to create this puzzle. So, your expertise over in, let's say, hotel management can also have a great impact on the construction side because you understand what the end use is going to, how it's going to implement and look and design. And okay, we did this last time, but it didn't work out so well. So let's make a tweak over here, so it's a huge thing. So thank you for sharing that up. And that kind of answers and talked about, opportunities, with you getting laid off, you were able to use it as an opportunity instead of a woe is me. And I think that's huge because it's so easy to lean on that crutch. Regardless of what industry you're in, if, even without COVID, if you got laid off for who knows whatever reason,
Yep.
You can, it's so easy to use it as a crutch and go, woe is me, my life is miserable, blah, blah, excuse me, blah, blah, blah. But it's also, you're able to turn that into an opportunity and say, what can I do from here? What experiences can I share with others? How can I improve this thing? An example that also comes to mind is Pepto-Bismol was created out of I don't understand the whole backstory, but from what I understand, it was created out of a experiment kind of gone wrong sort of thing. And also that's how rubber became, they could have that didn't work, but now we've got rubber and rubber is everywhere.
Yeah. Wasn't it the same with the glue on the back of a Post-it note? It's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many opportunities to find the benefits of that circumstance situation, and it could be endless and so many channels and avenues and so many new connections and opportunities that add up.
I think when something happens to you, like you get laid off from a job unexpectedly, or you've had trouble finding a job after you've been laid off, and maybe you've had a series of setbacks along the way. It's perfectly normal and it's perfectly acceptable to feel bad about it, to wallow a little bit of self-pity. I think you have to do that for a short period of time. It's almost like a grieving process that you need to go through. But I think what you'll find is that if you stay in that state for a long time, it doesn't get you anywhere. So, let's say you got laid off a week ago and you're still kind of down about it. I get it. Okay, that's fine. But how long are you going to stay down about it? How long are you going to complain about this thing happening to you? What is it getting you other than keeping you in a negative mindset? Is it moving you towards finding something else? Probably not. Is it moving you towards starting your own thing and finding something that fulfills you? Probably not. You're spending all your time complaining and being down about it. At some point, you've got to recognize that that doesn't serve you anymore. So live in the moment, internalize what's going on, deal with the emotions, deal with the frustration. But at some point, you got to take that first step. And whether it's going to find a new job, whether it's starting your own thing, whether it's a complete career pivot and you go do something else, or maybe you need to go back to school to do it, whether it's, jumping on YouTube and learning about different, opportunities in different fields that maybe you hadn't thought about before, exposing yourself to podcasts like this, reading different books, whatever it is, just take that first step to get out of whatever situation that you're in. Because at least you're one step closer to changing your situation. And that's the mindset that I had pretty quickly a year ago. I've had that. I'm lucky enough to have a view of the world like that as it is. It's innate within me. But I got to tell you, I've talked to an awful lot of people in my industry where the same thing has happened to them, and they're having a hard time getting past their current situation because they can't get past how they feel about it. They're not taking the steps to move forward.
Thank you. Yeah. And everybody responds differently and stuff. And, you need to make sure you're processing it in a healthy way and whatever. And, you certainly don't want to lean on that crutch for too long. Otherwise, you'll be dependent on it.
Yeah. And it doesn't serve you after a while. It really doesn't. You can't change your situation by living in that place for a long time. And if you want things to be different, you have to do different things.
Absolutely. I want to kind of jump back to something you said earlier. And you kind of brought it up a little bit again here. Taking that first step. And then you mentioned earlier, that sometimes it takes a while before people actually take that first step and take the bull by the horns, and find that perfect time or the right time. Well, what would you say, what's your experience and everything, to people that are, it's not the right time yet, or I'll do it when this happens, or when I get this promotion, or when I get this, or whatever?
Mm-hmm. What I think is, don't feel like you need to have all of the answers and everything in place before you can do the thing that you're thinking about. So when I started the hotel management company, actually, that's not a good example. When I started the podcast, that's a better example because I know a lot about managing a hotel. I didn't know a lot about podcasting. And, I got in the weeds about, do I need a mic? What kind of mic do I need to get? Is my computer going to be okay? Am I going to have a YouTube channel? Where do I host this thing? I don't even know, how do I put it up? Where do you do that? Do I need a website? How do I build a website? There's so many, all of these things where it could really quickly overwhelm you. And you're like, it's just too much. I'm not even going to bother doing it. How do I find guests? I don't even know. I'm uncomfortable reaching out to people to be on the show. Whatever it is, all that stuff can pile up and prevent you from moving forward. So I just started. I know you hear people say that all the time and it sounds so simple. And I know there might be people listening right now that be like, yeah, but that was simple for you. You just started, I'm doing something more complicated, or my brain works differently. Whatever the excuse is. I I just when I started the podcast, I bit the bullet. I bought a mic. That's how I started. I just like, hey, yeah, I watched a couple YouTube videos and I'm like, okay, I'll just get that one. And then I started, so now I have the mic. So I'm at least a little bit invested because I have a little bit of money in the game now. And then I started researching, well, how do you post a podcast? Like, where do you put it so that people can download it? And then that led me down a couple of rabbit holes and I found, how to host one. And then it just went from there. And then I'm like, well, how do you find guests? And then I found stuff online about how to find podcast guests. And one thing after another, I was able to answer all the questions. And all the way along, I was putting a brick in the foundation every day because I was doing something that was getting me to the place that I wanted to be. And after a relatively short amount of time, it only took me really a couple of weeks to pull everything together. I started doing the podcast. And then you get into like, well, you want it to be perfect right out of the gate. If you go back and listen to, and I've literally been doing this like not even a year, but like the first podcast versus episode 38 that's coming out this week are completely different shows. Because every single time I just get a little bit better. I critique myself a little bit more. I listen back to the episodes and hear things I don't like. So I try to be mindful of them on the next one. And, I use a system or a service called Fiverr a lot to help me with like editing and coming up with images and that kind of stuff. Or you can hire people like super cheap to do, some of the jobs that I'm not good at. And just all the way along, it just, one foot in front of the other. And it's gotten better over time. It wasn't perfect out of the gate, but I'm okay with that. And I know the listeners are okay with that because they're coming on this journey with me.
I love that. And that is so true. It sounds cliche and repetitive, but it's so true. And just start, I'm on, this would be like episode 28, I believe, for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm still not perfect. I still have mistakes, whatever. My last episode, I forgot to mute my phone, so the ring went off. I still did the podcast, you're still doing it.
Yeah.
When I started, I literally YouTubed how to put videos on YouTube.
For sure.
I didn't know it, and I'm sitting here in my spare bedroom / office.
Yeah.
I got my computer camera and my computer mic, and that's what I'm using, and making it happen. So whatever.
Yeah, you don't even need to buy a mic. That's how I did it. But yeah, I mean, just start with you don't even have to put anything out. Just like, and you don't even have to have a guest. My first 10 episodes were just me talking. And then after, the first 10, I'm like, well, people don't want to just hear me talk. Let's start bringing other people in. So that's when I started reaching out to people that I know in the industry, people I've worked with in the past who I thought just did interesting things and had something interesting to say. And I brought them on, and the show's just sort of gone from there, and it's sort of built up on its own. Just start.
Yeah, just start. When you mentioned finding guests, I got on Facebook and said podcasting, and I found a few podcast groups, and that's how we connected.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
The resources.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, I've stayed pretty, not out of, it's not deliberate. This is just how it's been. I've stayed in the hospitality space, whether it's hotels, restaurants, or short-term vacation rentals like Airbnbs, almost exclusively since I started, doing my own show and being on other people's shows. But, we got connected to do this show. And I think you're the first non-hospitality focused podcast that I've been on since I started being on podcasts. And it's amazing because, you can talk to a whole new audience and get perspective and stories from other people. It's awesome. It's such a great medium. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had some guests, and they've introduced me to people and things and concepts that I would have never thought of otherwise, whatever. So,
yeah. And I would say this too, is if anybody's listening and they want to start their own show, do it. Like literally start. Don't get in the mindset, oh, there's too many podcasts and how am I going to get found? There's not too many podcasts. Most of the podcasts that are out there, I think there's like 8 or 9 million out there right now. Most don't get past 10 episodes. The hosts just give up and they lose momentum. So yeah, there's a big number out there, but you can still get found. You can still reach your target audience. So if you've got a passion for interviewing people or getting into content production, this is still a place where you can do that and have a huge impact.
Yeah, if you're passionate about something, your message will find the right ears.
Exactly.
Awesome. And this can cross over to anything, you know, if you're passionate about cooking, if you're passionate about fixing cars or whatever, you know, you'll just figure out a way to start. I'm not a brain expert, but, you know, I'm sure there's other resources out there, you know, my brain works like this. Okay, what's the next step? Go forward a baby step. Forward 2 baby steps.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I love that you brought that up, you know, just starting, because that's huge. And it's the hardest step to take often.
Yeah, but you'll build momentum.
Absolutely.
And that's the key.
You'll build momentum, and I've loved the experiences and the people I've met and the journey I'm on. It's one of the couple of the things that keeps me going and keeps me reaching out and doing these podcasts and stuff. Mm-hmm. So if people wanted to connect with you more, reach out to you, where could they find you?
Yeah.
Podcast and your website.
Yeah. So the best place to find me, I'll give you 2 web addresses. My main company, Knowing Hospitality, that's the hotel management company. Just go to knowinghospitality.com. That's it. And you can get in touch with me there. And if you want to learn more about the podcast, just go to theprovenprinciplespodcast.com. Everything's there.
Awesome. And we'll post those in the comments with the show as well. Adam, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed the conversation. We really appreciate it. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening or watching. Please feel free to reach out to either Adam or myself if you need help with anything. Please feel free to reach out and let us know how we can help you. Dread no Mondays.